Hey guys, so I'm going to walk through this week's assignments with you and hopefully answer some of the questions that I think you guys will have and just kind of explain some of the stuff. So I'm going to walk through all three assignments on here. So if you just want to watch the first part for review one and come back later for the second part, whatever you want to do, I'm just going to put it all in one video. So I'm going to share my screen with you and I'm going to start with the first assignment that you're going to have. Remember that all these assignments are opening up on the same day. So mine looks maybe a little bit different than yours, but notice that they all open on the 14th, which is Tuesday morning, and then they all close on the 21st at 3 o'clock, which is the next Tuesday. Okay, so they have different dates here. That's because those are for attendance purposes. This would be your attendance for Tuesday, Wednesday, for Thursday. So just keep that in mind. They're all opening on the same day now, and yeah, they'll all close on the same day as well. If you didn't watch my video over that, go watch that. So starting with the first review, the first questions that you're going to have are all vocab questions. Most of them are going to be a drop-down menu like this. If you're having issues coming up with these answers, Google is a great tool since you don't have a textbook, obviously, but you are going to be answering some different vocab questions, and then you're going to get into talking about some angles. So hopefully we all know what an obtuse angle is. That's when it's bigger than 90 degrees. And then you're going to be asked what an acute angle is, which is when it's less than 90. And then you're going to be talking about straight angles, which is when you have a straight line that's 180 degrees. And then obviously everyone knows what a right angle is. So we're going to get into naming the angle in 3 different ways. So your question will probably be different than this one since this is just a preview. Okay, but these are the ways that you could name this angle. So the angle that they're talking about right here is angle K, which is what you see as the last one here. You can name it any way that you want as long as this is in the middle. So it could be LKJ, which would be this one, or it can be the other way, JKL, which would be this one. So moving on, same thing, you're going to be naming this region in 3 different ways. One thing I want to point out to you is the way that you need to make sure you type your answer. Make sure that you are using the angle symbol. Okay, if you are calling this angle 2, you cannot just put 2. You have to put the angle sign or it's going to count it wrong. You also need to put the commas in between the answers. Okay, then you're going to get into identifying the different pictures. This one's asking you which one's an obtuse angle that has this name. Okay, that's going to be this one over here because it's NPQ. So it goes from N to PQ, goes in that order. It cannot be any other angles that are not obtuse or don't go in that order. So for example, it can't be C because it doesn't go in the right order. It goes NQP. Okay, that's not in the right order. So just looking at the different pictures and fitting the descriptions and trying to figure out which ones are which. Okay. This question is about the hands that are on a clock. So you need to make sure that you understand what the hands on the clock look like. This is obviously not a digital clock. Okay. And then you're trying to find the angle measures. One thing that people always run into with this is they don't know how to set it up. So I will show you real quick what that's going to look like. Let me stop sharing here for a second. So one thing that you need to understand about the clock question is the way that it's set up. So whenever you're looking at your clock, you've got 12 o'clock at the top, you've got 6, and then you've got 3 on the side, and you've got 9 on the other side. And obviously, in between all of those, whoops, are all the numbers that I didn't just say. Okay, so your clock is going to look like this. Okay? So if they are asking you, and that question they're asking you for 2 o'clock. So imagine this as a grid. If I drew it like this, okay, each one of those is now a right angle. Okay, so if I was talking about going from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, that would be a 90-degree angle. Well, let's figure out how much space is in between each one of these, because even though I didn't draw them very straight, they are all equal. So if I divided it like this, okay, there is now 1, 2, 3 sections. Again, we're assuming all these are equal. I just have crappy drawing. Okay, so all 3 of these sections are equal to each other. So if I know this whole thing is a 90 and I divided that by the 3 sections, each one of those is 30. Okay, so if this is 30 degrees and this next spot is 30 degrees and so on. Okay, this is asking you about what's the angle between 1 or what's the angle at 2 o'clock. That would be if it was right here. So from your hands on the clock, they'd be going from here to here, which would be 30, and then 30 more, so it'd be 60 degrees. So as I said, you have to know that in each quadrant there is 90 degrees. So back to sharing for you guys. Oops. Okay, so that's the clock question. And then you're going to have a couple of those, so same idea. This one is going to start talking about how you have to know which angle measures are which. So this tells you that RQT, which goes along the bottom here, is a straight angle. You have to know that's 180 degrees. So whenever you are setting this up, you know that this part and this part are equal to 180. So I would have to take that 12x plus 2 and add 7x plus 7 and set it equal to 180 degrees. So that's what your equation is going to say. 12x plus 2 plus 7x plus 7 equals 180. And then you're just solving that like a regular equation. You shouldn't have any issues with that. Whenever you're finding the angle measure, once you find out what x is, you're just subbing that back in up here. So if that didn't make sense, just rewind it and let's do it again. Now, this one's the same idea, except for this one is made up of a 90-degree angle. So each one of these parts, if I add those together, their total is 90 degrees. So if I take 32x plus 5 and I add 8x plus 5, it's equal to 90. So it would be this plus this equals 90 degrees. Solve that for x and then sub it back in to figure out each one of these measures. And when you're done, you can check those because those should equal 90. This one you're just doing the acute, obtuse, right angle stuff again. Okay, this one is actually getting into sine, cosine. It's the only one that's like this. Just writing the ratio, meaning what is the fraction for this. So remember, sine, that's opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine's adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent's opposite over adjacent. So if you're looking for the sine of A, I would need the opposite side, which is the side across from it. So 20 over the hypotenuse, which is going to be across from the 90, so 29. Okay, you're just writing that as a ratio. I don't need that as a fraction. Okay, so that is the first one. Okay. The second thing that you guys are going to see is the first semester review part 2. Okay, this one has a couple of the intro questions at the beginning that you've seen before, so shouldn't have any issues getting those right. You are going to have some more vocab on this one. Again, Google, great idea if you're not sure about those, but I think you should be able to figure those out. Then you're going to get into finding the measures of the missing angle. So hopefully remember that the total in here is 180 degrees. If I'm trying to find the missing angle, I'm just going to subtract off the two that I already know. So 180 minus 125 minus 35 in this case will give me what angle A is. So that's what you're going to be doing for this one as well. And this one. Now, on this one thing I'll point out for you is they don't list this angle, but they are showing you that's 90. So 180 minus 90 minus 29 will give you this angle right here. Another one, finding the missing angle of the triangle. Okay, this one, same idea. What is the third angle in the triangle? If one of them is 130, the other one's 20, what would you find? Okay, again, subtracting the ones you know from 180. Okay, now, this is an example of vertical angles, angles that are directly across from one another like this. Those are equal to each other. So I know that this 138 equals 7x plus 40, and I can write an equation that says that. So 138 equals 7x plus 40, and I can solve, and they are asking you for the value of x. Okay, so in that case, 16. Okay, then we're going to classify each triangle by the angles that it has. Okay, so again, this would be a right angle, acute, or obtuse type of triangle. Different pictures, you get the idea. We only know it's a right angle whenever it has this little box in the corner. That's the only way. So if it looks like that, but without a box, you can't assume that it's a 90. This one is a little confusing because they didn't really clarify this very well. But the red sides are saying that those are the same. The black sides are saying that it's different. So in this triangle here, the two red sides, they're saying those are equal to each other. Okay, and then this one side right here is different. So this would be an example of an isosceles triangle because these two are the same. Triangle 2, they're telling you that all three sides are red, which means they're all equal, which is an example of an equilateral triangle. Since this one is in black, they're saying that all three of these are different measures, which would be an example of a scalene triangle. So again, red means the sides are the same, black means that they are different. This is just another example of classifying it based on its measures and sides. So are they the same? Are they different? Acute, obtuse, that kind of stuff. Same thing here with the red and the black. The red sides means that they're the same and the black is different. Now you're going to get into identifying things as a ray, a line segment, or an angle. So remember, if it has 2 points from start to finish, that's a line segment. If it just has 1 point and it goes on forever in one direction, that's a ray. Forever in both directions would be a line. Talking about if points are collinear, that means if I graph these 3 points, do they make a straight line? Yes or no? So you're going to have to graph these, and then you're going to have to tell me that they are collinear or not. So hopefully remember where order pairs are falling. All right, this one you're just telling me if something's congruent or not. So segment LN, so if I go from here to here, how many units is that? You just count those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And MQ, so from M to Q, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are both 10 units, so yes, they are congruent to each other. Another example of naming angle in 3 different ways. You had that in part 1. Find the measure of these angles. So you have to know which ones are equal and which ones are equal to 180. So 158 and Y, those are directly across from each other. Those are vertical angles, which means they are equal to one another. So Y would also be 158. As far as X and Z go, those are going to be the same measurement because they're also vertical, but you have to find one of them first. So those lie on the same straight line. That's 180 degrees right there. So 180 minus 158 will tell me what X is. And again, it's going to ask you all 3 of those angles. So that's what that would look like. X and Z, again, are the same thing. Same rules apply here. You have to know which ones are equal and which ones are not. Okay, so 83 and X, those are on the same straight line. So I'm going to subtract 180 minus 83 to get this angle. This angle and Z are the same because they're in the same spot. We talked about that whenever we were talking about angles before. But X and Z would be in the same spot, bottom left and bottom left. So those are the same. Those are called corresponding angles. And then Y is going to be the same as this angle because those are alternate interior angles. So Y is also going to be 83 degrees. This one is just plugging these numbers into this formula. You've got X, Y, Z, and X, Y, Z. You just plug those in here and solve and see what you get, rounding using a decimal. Okay. So that is the end of the second part and a rundown of part 3. Going to look something like this. You're going to again see several vocab things talking about different things. So obviously drop down arrow, things like that. This one was a little confusing to some people before. It says the window ledges are perpendicular to one side of the building. That means that all of the ledges are running equal to each other. They're all running parallel to each other, but they're perpendicular to the same side. That's how you know that they're all parallel to each other. That doesn't make any sense. You'll get one that probably does. This is also talking about finding the measure of the third angle, so subtracting from 180. This one as well, to figure out what A and B are. Okay, you first have to figure out B, even though it asks for A first. Okay, it's the easiest to figure out B. Do 180 and subtract the 2 angles you know. Okay, these 2 angles are on the same straight line. So once I know B, I can subtract that from 180 and get what this is. Another way to find that is also just add these 2 right here. So if I had 90 and 77, that will give me this right here. Okay, now you're getting into solving for variables. So on this one, they're asking you first, what is X? Okay, so if I know that all of these are in the same triangle, I'm going to add X plus 47 to X minus 15 and X, and that's equal to 180 because that's the degree total. Okay, so if I solve that out, I'm going to get what X is. And then you're going to have to go back and tell me what all the angles are. So the parts that they weren't showing there at first with these 3 right here, okay, those are all going to be on there showing. So you're going to need those. Finding the slope of the line. Okay, again, this is just counting between the spots on the graph. So how many did you rise? How many did you run? And tell me what the slope is. Okay, you're also going to have to know the slope formula, okay, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, I do have that written here for you guys if you didn't know. That is this one right here. Okay, anytime it asks for the slope of 2 points, you're going to need the slope formula, which is that one. Okay, so you're going to need that for that question there. Then you're going to be graphing the line equation using the slope and y-intercept, okay, which is going to be y equals mx plus b, basically. So starting at the y-intercept, in this case, would be 5, and then using that to find a second point along with the slope. And you're going to have several graphing questions. Oh, back here. Write the equations of the horizontal and vertical lines through the given point. So a horizontal line, okay, obviously horizontal is running left to right. That is a y equals line. So it's going to be y equals whatever the y value is. So y is equal to 8 in this case. Then it's going to ask you about the vertical line. A vertical line runs up and down. That's an x line. So x equals something. X equals, in this case, -5. Okay, so that's what you would be looking for there. So just remember which one is which. Okay, another graph for you guys. This one, you're going to graph both of these lines and then tell me where they cross. So y equals -8, that's a horizontal line. X equals 2 is vertical. They're going to cross at one point, and you have to write it as an ordered pair. A couple more things with vocab. Those are all going to be drop-down menus. There's several of those right through here. I'm not going to show you the answer for those because there's only one. Okay, this one you're just telling me what's the slope and y-intercept point of the line. So in this case, y equals mx plus b. Which one is the slope and which one is the y-intercept? Same thing with this next one. This one, you're just telling me which graph this is. Again, if you know which one is y equals mx plus b, you know that it's crossing at +3. Right now, the only ones crossing at +3 would be this one and this one, b and d. If its slope is 5, it's positive, which means it's going uphill, which means that would be letter B because this one is going downhill. Same thing with this one. This one, you're telling me if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So they're parallel lines if they have the exact same slope. They're perpendicular lines if they are same, different signs, same reciprocals. Sorry. Okay, so for example, if you have +2 and -1/2. Those are reciprocals of each other and they're opposite signs, which means they're perpendicular. If they're the exact same, they are parallel. And if they're not either one of those things, then they're neither. So this one would actually be neither because it's -6 for this slope and +6 for this slope. Those are not parallel because they have different signs. They're not perpendicular because they're not reciprocals. Same question here. This one, you're just using the slope to tell me, or sorry, using the graph to tell me the slope. And same thing on that one. And this one, you're finding the pitch of the roof, which is basically the slope of this line. You can also figure it out using the Pythagorean theorem. Okay. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, obviously, you can reach out to me and I'll help you. You can email me, message me, text me, whatever that is. So hope this helps, and I hope you guys have a good night and good luck.